Rel- rel- Relax and take note.
CLBMG.
Relax and take note.
CLBMG.
Relax and take note. Relax and take note.
All right. The name is DelMan, aka Four Eyes, the Ugly Professor, doing a review for the new Mobb Deep Infinite album. This album review is done on behalf of Old Heads Network. All right, man. Mobb Deep has 9 studio albums as a group, as a duo. Their first album dropped in 1993. It was called Juvenile Hell. Now, it wasn't that good. I didn't particularly like it, but to give them some grace, they were, you could say, kid rappers at the time. They were very young. They was teenagers, young teenagers. But they had potential. You could see the potential on the album, even though I didn't care for it. You know, they had the one standout song that everyone tends to talk about, Hit It From the Back. That was one of the few good songs on there. But they did have some heavy hitter producers that worked on that album with them, like Large Professor and DJ Premier. But their 3-album run after that, The Infamous, that dropped in 1995, is considered a bona fide classic by many hip-hop heads, including this one right here. Then you had Hell on Earth, 1996, that dropped. A lot of niggas love that album. They damn near consider that their favorite, one of their favorite Mobb Deep albums. And then you had Murder Music, which dropped in 1999. That was a classic in my eyes and in many people's eyes. I personally like Murder Music better than Hell on Earth. I know I'm probably in the minority with that because niggas love that Hell on Earth album. But that's one of the best 3-album runs when you talking about The Infamous, Hell on Earth, and Murder Music. One of the best 3-album runs there is in hip hop. That kind of stamped them as a legendary group / duo. It made them icons. It made them legends long before this Legend Has It campaign. So that put them squarely on the map as Hall of Fame type rap duo / group, however you want to label them. But the albums after Murder Music, not so much. They were kind of disappointing, if you want to be honest. And you had Infamy, which dropped in 2001. That wasn't a good album. I did not like that album. There's only a few joints on that album that I liked. Then you had America's Nightmare, which dropped in 2004. That was just okay. Just a little better than Infamy. Then you had Blood Money. I think that's the joint they did when they was with G-Unit. That was a little better than America's Nightmare. So they got gradually a little better after Infamy, but that dropped in 2006, but that was just okay too. Just a little better than America's Nightmare. It had a little more joints on there that I like. And then you had another album that came out in like 2014, because I think they had a breakup. They was beefing with each other in between like 2006 and 2014 for whatever reason. They had kind of broke up and then came back together. So you had an Infamous album, the infamous Mobb Deep album, was dropped in 2014. That was solid. That was probably the best out of all them joints after Murder Music. But they had a mixtape / album, because they played like an album, but it was labeled as a mixtape, and that was called Free Agents. That was very solid. That dropped like in 2003, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But Prodigy, they had put out like 2 Prodigy solo albums post-death, after he died, that a lot of people might not be aware of. One was called, I hope I get this title right, Helligen Dialect, the Book of Revelations. That wasn't that good. But the second joint to that, called The Book of Heron, was solid. He had joints with Big Daddy Kane, Remy Ma, if I'm not mistaken. That was a solid solo album from Prodigy after his death. So when you talk of like these post-death albums, and with those two solo joints they put out after he died, that's why when they said they was doing another Mobb Deep, I was like, I didn't think he had extra verses for this Mobb Deep album, being that they had already put out two solo joints from Prodigy after his death. So I was like, oh, where they gonna get these verses from? But they had them. But we'll get into that. I'll get into that a little later on. But post-death albums, like albums put out after people died, are better than most people think. I know the kind of like the running theme is albums put out after people die tend not to be good, but they're actually better than we give them credit for. Like I know the notorious Biggie joints and the Tupac joints after they died weren't good. I agree, they were not good. But the Gangstar joint that Premier put together after Guru died was pretty good. That came out, about 5 years ago? That was pretty good. I like that. I was very impressed how they put that together. Then you had the Big L joint, The Big Picture. We getting another post-death Big L album coming out on Mass Appeal, but the first one they dropped like not too long after his death was pretty good. I like that album. It was a solid album. Very solid album. Then you got this Infinite album, which is the best out of all the post-death, after-death albums put out, in my opinion. This is definitely the best by far out of all them joints. But the albums after death are not as bad as we tend to think, or the rep that they tend to have. Even the Phife Dawg joint was solid. The one they put out, after he died not too long ago, a few years ago, that wasn't bad either. That was a solid joint. But I would have to say this Infinite album by Mobb Deep is the best Mobb Deep album since Murder Music. And that's not being a prisoner of the moment or recency bias. That is the truth. I know it's subjective, but I think this Infinite album is the best album since Murder Music. So that's saying a lot that they dropping one of their better albums in 2025 when you got some folks saying old folks should just hang it up and stop rapping, that they have made one of their best albums now, this year, since an album they dropped in the 90s. So that's saying a lot. And I have to say, man, this is like, this is the best I've heard Havoc on the mic, should I say, on the mic in a long time. This is probably the best I heard him. This might be the best I heard him on the mic. If I'm not lunching, I'm not tripping. I think this is he's doing his thing. This is the best I've heard him in a long time, if not the best in general. And you would never know Prodigy had passed away, because listening to this album, it feels like he's right there in the studio making it. It doesn't feel like it's something that was forced. It seems so natural. It's like he's still alive. And that also is a bonus with this album. It makes this album even better than I thought it would be. And Havoc and Alchemist did a great job putting this album together, I have to say. And Alchemist, he is Alchemist, he's top notch. His production is like that. He does some joints on here, but I think Havoc is in his bag as far as his production. His production is nasty. I really like it. He seems to be at his best, one of his best in a long time. I'm really liking his production on here. But Alchemist does his thing too, but we know that. I mean, Alchemist is killing it this year. He's like constantly dropping projects or doing production on someone's joint. So he's just killing it. That guy's got to be top 5 producer of all time by many. Definitely me at this point. And I'm going to get into some of the songs on the album. Like you got Against the World. Great way to start the album off. First time I heard this, and I think first time many people heard this song, is on the Joe and Jada podcast, Fat Joe and Jada Kids podcast, when Havoc and Raekwon was actually on the podcast, and Rhapsody came in on the joint, and they played Mobb Deep Against the World. It's called Against the World, and everybody was loving it. I was loving it. Great way to start the album. Banging song. Produced by Havoc, I believe. And then you got Gunfire, which is another banger, produced by The Alchemist. You got Easy Bro, produced by Havoc. Nice. You got Look at Me, featuring The Clips, produced by Havoc. One of my favorite songs on the album. The Clips and Mobb Deep are going to be fighting for that #1 slot, that #1 album of the year. Because this Infinite album is definitely one of the best albums of the year. But I still think Clips got it over them. I still think. But we got some heavy hitters coming later on this year, so we'll see how that goes. But I still think the Clips got it. But this is definitely a contender, this Infinite album. And them being on a song, featured on a song, just is icing on the cake, really. Then you got another song called The M, The O, The B, and The B, featuring Big Noy, produced by Havoc. I'm not really feeling this song, and that's due to the hook. Because what they do, they flip an old Boogie Down Production hook for the song that Boogie Down Productions did back in the day called Jimmy. They were saying the J, the I, the M, the M, the Y. They did that, spelling out Mobb Deep, and it didn't work for me. I didn't like the way they tried to freak it. It kind of ruined the song for me, so I don't really care for that song. But that's like maybe one of the songs I didn't care for. I like pretty much everything on here with the exception of 1 or 2 songs. And then you got another song on here, which I'm not really feeling, called Down For You, featuring Nas and Georgia. I think her name is Georgia Smith. I believe she is the daughter of Prodigy. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's the daughter of Prodigy, and she sings like on the hook on the break. And that's the only reason I'm not quite feeling this song. Her singing style didn't work for me on this album, on this song, should I say. But I appreciate them having her sing on this song and getting featured on this album if she is actually Prodigy's daughter, and I think she is. And I'm not saying she can't sing, it's just the singing style that she's doing on there didn't work for me. So those are the only 2 songs I didn't care for. Everything after that, I'm loving it. So we're going to continue. I'm going to continue. You got Taj Mahal, produced by The Alchemist. Really digging this. It falls in line with Nas getting that Casino, being that Nas is like one of the co-owners of Mass Appeal, and this is put out by Mass Appeal, this Infinite album. So I'm loving Taj Mahal. That's like the second song that I actually heard. And the song Down For Me, I think that's the first official single, if I'm not mistaken. They do have a music video for it as well, getting back to that song. But Taj Mahal is like that. I love that joint. Then you got another joint called Mr. Magic, produced by Havoc. Good song, dig it. Then you got another song called Score Points, produced by The Alchemist. Really dig it. Then you got another song called My Era, produced by The Alchemist. They give love and respect to the other rap artists that came up in their era, like Wu-Tang, Dog Pound, M.O.P., you know, Nas, so on and so forth. So yeah, I like that song. Dig it. And then you got another song called Pour the Henny. You know, them niggas love, they all about their Henny. They love their Hennessy and shit. Featuring Nas, another song featuring Nas, produced by Havoc, one of my favorite songs on the album. Then you got Clear Black Nights, featuring Raekwon and Ghostface Killer. They Mass Appeal partners. produced by Havoc. Really dig this joint. Another one of my favorite. Then you got Discontinued, produced by Havoc. Dig it. Another nice song. Then you got Love the Way. Down For Me Part 2, featuring Nas and Her. H-E-R, Her. Produced by Havoc. Now, this version of the song I like. I prefer this song much more than the one where Prodigy Daughter is singing on. I think her singing style fits and works better than Prodigy's daughter, Georgia Smith. But needless to say, I like this joint. And then you got another song called We the Real Thing, produced by Havoc. A banger. Nice, great way to end the album. I think it's like 15 tracks total, if I'm not mistaken. And Mobb Deep is definitely in my top 5 duos of all time. You know, the way I classify duos, when you got two rappers, when you got two people who rap, and maybe one raps a little bit more than the other, but they pretty much get equal time. So Mobb Deep is definitely in my top 5 duos all time. When I think of duos, I think of like Smith and Wesson, Camp Low, M.O.P., who am I forgetting? The Dog Pound. Who else? Outkast, of course. Outkast is my number 1 duo and number 1 group in general of all time. So, and Mobb Deep will probably be in my top 5 just groups of all time. General, if you're talking about duos or 3-man groups or whatever the case may be. So I'm gonna rate this album high. Infinite is getting rated high. I'm gonna give it an A-, a strong A-. It's teetering on that A grade, but I'm gonna give it an A-. Really dig it. Now, to be honest, I've only listened to it a few times, but I was impressed off the jump, and maybe it will get better, even with more listens. Then, and I will give maybe I would get it to an A if I listen to it a few more times, but I'm gonna give it a strong A- for now. I'm out. I'm done. Subscribe, like, and all that good shit, and I'm out.
Relax and take note.